Hello everyone. So we are back very, very quickly. Yesterday, I don't know if y'all saw it, but I posted a video review of Hopeless Fountain Kingdom, which is Halsey's second album, and I almost immediately got a couple of requests to do After Laughter, which is Paramore fifth album, and figured why not. I just got home from work, picked up a Slurpee on my way home, so I'm gonna drink it periodically. I'm really new to makeup, and a contour palette that I ordered came, and I just tried it out. I don't really know if I did it right. I don't know, it looks contoured, I guess. But yeah, I'm trying it out. That's not what we're all here for. We are here to see me talk about my opinions about Paramore. After Laughter is Paramore's fifth album, and for those of you who don't know, there's kind of always been some background drama involving Paramore. So the self-titled drops, they tour on it. After the tour ends, Jeremy quits the band. And a couple of days later, it comes out that he is suing Paramore, basically claiming that during the writing process on the self-titled, the three of them, Haley, Jeremy, and Taylor, had agreed that all three of them would get equal writing credit. But the only track that Jeremy is credited as a co-writer on is one of the interludes, so only one track. And so he's suing, I think, over breach of contract. I'm a little bit fuzzy on the more nuanced details, but the point is that Jeremy quit and filed a lawsuit. In February 2017, it's formally announced that Zach is returning to Paramore. There were t-shirts with Zach's second grade school photo on them or something. They were really cute. Paramore's official lineup is Haley, Taylor, and Zach. And as that group of three, they dropped After Laughter this past May. I feel like this album is it's really personal. It was written from a place of a lot of pain. And for me, at least, understanding the context really helps my appreciation of the music. So yeah, let's start doing the thing. But the first track off of After Laughter was also the lead-off single, so we've all been familiar with it for a little bit longer. It is called Hard Times, and it doesn't sound like anything that Paramore has done before. If your primary touch point with Paramore is the Riot era, so again Misery Business and Crush Crush Crush, you wouldn't recognize this as the same band. Which is good. There's almost a 10-year gap between those two albums. I'm 24 right now, and I think of me at 14 and the type of poetry that I was writing, and that's embarrassing. I hope it never sees the light of day. That said, so Hard Times is very it's very 80s inspired. It's very you kind of want to bop around to it, but it's a really depressing song if you listen to the lyrics. When the single was dropped, I think we all kind of got the feeling Hayley Williams is asking us to have a dance party about our depression. Great. And it's a really fun song about depression. So the second track is called Rose Colored Boy, and it is my favorite song on the album. Again, it feels very 80s. You can definitely tell these songs came off of the same album. They come from the same place. They were written by the same people. Which I like, I like a little bit of unity. But again, we have this very sharp contrast between the subject matter of the song, so the lyrics of the song, and then also the very upbeat melody, pretty quick rhythm as well. And because what I do when I listen to an album for the first time is I listen to the whole thing from start to finish a couple of times, because if I'm being told a story, I want to be aware of that. You kind of have to know that this juxtaposition between the very peppy music and the very depressing lyrics, this is deliberate. And you kind of think about the title of the album, which is After Laughter, and Haley has described it as when people burst out laughing and eventually they come down, it's what brings them down. At this point, that kind of starts to make sense. The best is over and the worst is yet to come. Track 3 is Told You So. It's we're still in that theme of 80s, and at this point the beats do start to sound a little repetitive. We're hearing the same kind of tempo and the same kind of orchestration throughout. Like I just said, I like to know that I'm listening to the same album. I like to know that I'm being told a continuous story, but it's also like, okay, like, what's next? Like, what's the next thing that we're talking about? One thing that I will say, though, that's actually kind of cool is that Hayley's voice, like, you go back and listen to All We Know Is Falling, and then you listen to After Laughter, and her voice has not changed a ton, which is, like, that's different than saying that her writing has not changed, because her writing has changed a lot. Like, I'm talking about literally the sound of her voice. I think when you're listening to Paramore's entire discography, it feels really familiar. And I know that I have been listening to Paramore since forever. Comforting, in a way. Which doesn't really, like, that's not part of the album review, it's just a little thing. Anyway, Told You So. I really like this track. I like the way it kind of, like, tumbles along. I'm into it. Okay, so Forgiveness, track 4. This beat sounds dramatically different than the 3 tracks that came before it, which I love. We still have the same, like, 80s glam rock feel, though. Homegirl was not alive in the 80s. Like, none of these kids were alive in the 80s, and what that tells me, then, is that the influence from the 80s music, this is the music they were raised on. This is the music that their parents listened to. So you kind of wonder... So we're telling a story about depression, and we're linking it musically to an era that we were not alive to experience firsthand. So why root it in secondhand nostalgia? Secondhand nostalgia. Cool, cool, cool. Because if you are telling a story about how betrayed you feel by one of the original members of Paramore suing Paramore, then you would start to question the validity of all the good times, wouldn't you? So secondhand nostalgia, if the good times weren't even that good when they were happening, then how accurate is what I remember at all? It makes more sense in my head. I don't really know if it makes sense here. We can talk about it later. Fake Happy. Great title, by the way. Fake Happy is an amazing title. It almost feels like a lullaby, doesn't it? But then we get into the main part of the song, which is very light. But I do still feel like I'm listening to something out of the 1980s. So we're on theme. We're, like, doing that well. At this point, though, in this song, the vocalization starts to feel a little bit less controlled, and that's especially obvious in the chorus. I'm going to turn it up. So not only is it a little bit louder than the verses of the song, like the chorus itself is louder, like not just because I turned it up, but that's because the way it sounds on track. And because the "Oh Please" is such a, like, visceral wail, but then it's pulled back for the second verse. And because the song itself is about performing happiness, and I think that the melody is echoing that a little bit, because it's like, if the chorus, the bit that is repeated is the part that's begging for sympathy, and then you restrain it for the verse, and, like, get overly performative again for the verse, that's the kind of balance the song is talking about, isn't it? For this one, music and lyrics very closely aligned. They're like this. Yeah. So 26. 26 is my other favorite track off the album. I know I said The Rose-Colored Boys was my favorite. Girls Allowed to Have Two Favorite. I have always really liked the stripped-down songs with Paramore. I also think that this one plays into our overwhelming theme of nostalgia again, because she quotes not Misguided Ghosts, Brick by Boring Brick. Because, like, she quotes a line from the very first verse of Brick by Boring Brick, which is, wasn't it me who said keep your feet on the ground, which, in Brick by Boring Brick, the bridge, sorry, it's not the first verse, it's the bridge. The bridge is, keep your feet on the ground while your head's in the clouds. And so Brick by Boring Brick is off of Brand New Eyes, which is the last album, the only album, that all 5 of them are present for. And I don't think that's a coincidence. Like, that era is the era that she's looking back on and telling herself to, like, hold on to hope for. I just think that's really deliberate. And I also think that this track, because it's just Hayley and the guitar, we're not hiding behind the, like, 80s production anymore. So there's an argument to be made that 26, which I think would have been Hayley's age while this album was in production, unless I'm miscounting, this is the most honest song, then. This is the one that you, like, look into the mirror and give yourself a pep talk with. At this point, I really want to find Jeremy Davis and beat him up. Maybe that's just me. And now we're into Pool, which starts out with this very, like, glittery, very shimmery sound in the background. And maybe it's just because I'm from Southern California and I've seen a lot of swimming pools in my day, but that sound really reminds me of, like, the way that light plays against the concrete floors of like, chlorinated backyard pools. So we're back to very stylized production again. Hayley's voice in the chorus especially sounds much softer. I don't want to use the word refined because that's not the idea that I'm going for. Melodious, maybe? Let's go with melodious, because, like, Hayley Williams' voice, I love it. It's beautiful. It's not particularly melodious. Unless she's really, really trying. And you have to wonder why use the, like, smoothest vocalization in a chorus in which you are literally talking about killing yourself. And, like, being resistant to efforts to save you. I think that when you've gone through betrayal as big as this one seems to have been, as big as, like, Jeremy quitting and then filing that lawsuit, #relatable, you know? And that's one of the things that's the most beautiful about this album, I think, is that it's so personal. It's, here's my heart, here's all my damage. Dance to it, because that's all we can do sometimes. Grudges. Grudges is not my favorite song on this album. There's like nothing wrong with it. There's just like other songs that I like better. Again, with the 80s, like, I know that I keep saying that over and over again, but here we are. It's so obvious that this song is about Hayley and Zach forgiving each other. Hayley forgiving Zach for having quit the band, Zach forgiving Hayley for whatever really happened between the two of them when Hayley and Josh broke up. Also, the little woo before the chorus in this one, I think that's a lot of fun. This song is probably one of the happiest songs on the album, because it is explicitly a song about forgiveness. But it's not the most upbeat song on the album, though. Most hopeful lyrically, and, like, in about the middle in terms of, like, happy upbeats. Happy upbeats? Is that a thing? It's a thing now. Happy upbeats. But Hayley is, like, in this one, she's, like, back in control of her voice, and she's not being overly melodious. So she's back in, like, her middle, I think, is what's happening here. But all of the references in this one to, like, childhood or early adolescence, like we did when we were kids, again with the bar of nostalgia, again with, like, I feel like I'm being told that very few things were reliably good back in the day, but this friendship, this was one of them. Caught in the Middle. Relatable. So, Caught in the Middle, again, we're not even bothering with metaphors on this one, man. We're not fucking around. There's not even a ton that you can say about the music anymore, except that this song would feel the least out of place on one of the earlier albums. It's closer to, like, the peppy side of pop punk that we saw with, like, something off of Vices and Virtues by Panic, or something off of From Under the Cork Tree by Fall Out Boy, like, in that same... This feels like it belongs to that era. It's interesting that this is, like, the one that is melodically most relevant to a music era that Paramore was actually active for, and it is also the most overtly depressing song, like the most overtly contemplating suicide-y song. So if we go back to, like, false nostalgia, then it's like I'm being told this is what you get when you don't have nostalgia to hide behind anymore. This is heavy. This sounds very peppy and very upbeat. My god, this is heavy. Idol Worship. My third favorite song on the album. Also the one that Hayley is taking the least care to moderate her voice in. Like, she's just going for it. And this is also the one in which she's speaking directly to the fan base. She's telling us that she's not going to save us, which is, you know, hard. I feel like that's really hard to admit when you're when you're a celebrity, when you're a person that a lot of people look up to, that like when you're really going through it and you can barely take care of yourself, you definitely can't take care of anybody else, especially people you don't know. And there is a correlation on this album between the tracks that are the most honest and the tracks that have the least regulation in terms of vocal moderation. And I don't think that's coincidence. Just like how everything before 26 felt like it was hiding behind overly produced music, I think that Hayley Williams as a vocalist hides behind the control she has over her vocals. And on this album, it feels like the more honest the writing is, the less control there is over the vocals. So it's like, this is the happy, this is the control, this is the false, and everything over here, this like ugly and out of control stuff, this is all that matters, this is all that's real. Talk about a unity in music and lyrics, though. Okay, now we're on No Friend. So this was not written by anyone in Paramore, it was not performed by anyone in Paramore. The vocalist on this is the guy from You Me at 6, whose name I'm forgetting. Is it John Franceschi? I don't know. It's the frontman of You Me at 6. You can barely hear the words. Like, the words are almost entirely hidden behind the production, which is such an interesting choice. It's like, because I looked up the lyrics on like Lyric Genius or whatever, and it's like littered with like references to lines in other songs. Someone texted me, sorry. Like lines in other songs from the previous albums and song titles from the previous album. She's texting me again, I'm so sorry. And it's all being like collected in, there's a word for this type of poetry and I'm forgetting it. The kind where you like take references to other poems and you blend them into your own. And I will look it up before I post this. But you take this, you take someone else telling Paramore's story, and then you put it in a song in which you cannot make out any of the words. Not only is Paramore not performing the song, not only did Paramore not write the song, but the song on the album is hidden entirely behind the music. Like, what are we hiding from? What in Paramore's own history are we hiding from? Is it the fact that at one point this was a functional band, and now it's not anymore and we want to forget that? Is that why we're burying the history under someone else's music? I don't know, it's an odd song, it's an odd addition. Excuse me. So the last track on the album is called Tell Me How. And once again, it's just Hayley and one instrument. It's Hayley and a piano. And it is so, so clearly directed at Jeremy Davis. The first time I listened to this, I almost started to cry. It's just... With this one, I don't get the feeling that she's trying or not trying to regulate her voice. I feel like this is, for that reason, the most honest track on the album. It's the most straightforward, it's the most basic, it's more basic than 26, even. The fact that there's, like, no auto-tune on this one, that there's no... This song just, it's so sad. It's so sad. Like, as someone who has, like, followed Paramore for, you know, half my life, it's hard to listen to. And that's really all there is to say about it. It's a very stark song. It's asking a question that you don't have an answer to over and over again. And that's hard to listen to. And the fact that this was chosen as the track to close out the album, we're being told that there are no answers. Like, this, unlike a lot of depressing or, like, breakup or grief-driven albums, this one does not end on a hopeful note. And I think that this, plus Idol Worship, being the second to last track actually performed by Paramore on the album, are we being told that no one's going to save us unless we choose to save ourselves? Is that what we're doing here? I'm sad. I'm sad. Okay, so, that's After Laughter. So, overall, I don't know, I would give this album like a 9. It's almost entirely perfect. The only thing that just the 80s aesthetic is not my thing. It's, like, not my favorite thing to listen to. Would I still take a bullet for Hayley Williams? Yes, absolutely. Oh my god, like, right here. And I also just, like, I cannot help but compare this album to the self-titled, which is still my favorite Paramore album. This isn't pop punk, not anymore. I know that genre is like fake and made up by old white dudes who want to sell me stuff, but this doesn't sound like a pop punk album. It doesn't sound like a pop punk band. And there's something to be said for, you know, growing up. And the fact that growing up sucks, man. Like, this is a whole album about you grow up and your relationships with people change for the worse. And I just, whew. Like, this was obviously a very personal album to write and to put out into the world and to tour on. Oh my god, they're on tour in Europe for it right now. Like, can you imagine? Jesus. I think that After Laughter it's a very important album in that it's like so relatable to a lot of people who have experienced what feels like a really stark betrayal from someone you love and from someone you care about. Or not even that like specific, just for it's relatable for anyone who feels lost as you careen sideways into adulthood, which, hello, me. It's like we're being told that there are no answers. And we're not being told that that's okay. We are being told that it sucks for everybody, and that might actually be more comforting than someone just being like, it's gonna be great. Maybe it's not gonna be great. Maybe it's not going to be great, but you know what? We're all in it together, man. All in this together. I listen to this, and I listen to tracks like Idol Worship, and I listen to tracks like 26, and I listen as I'm being told that no one really knows what they're doing, but we all feel that way. And that's its own kind of hopeful. This was my album review of After Laughter. I really love Paramore. I'm excited to see Paramore with Kelly in October. I have to buy my plane tickets to Boston now. I have to get and yeah, again, my inbox is open. I would love to talk to people about this album, like what your experiences were with it. Oh my god, this video is a lot longer than the Halsey review. We'll see how I can cut that down in editing. But yeah, I'll be around, and thanks for watching.